it was transcriptions of Alzheimer patients that were done, and we did a reading of them at the Trafalgar Studios. And that was really my first introduction, and I did the reading with Simon Callow. And that was really my first introduction to AgeUK. And also having relatives which are getting older, I'm more concerned about it than I probably would be normally. You know, my sister's husband has dementia, and I've watched him over the last 2 years and seen an enormous change in him. And I'm personally interested in the fact that it's almost an epidemic situation that we have with dementia. But I also am very concerned that the differences are established, the difference between dementia, Alzheimer's, and the other thing that I've come across, which is diabetic dementia, which is a dementia that's caused by diabetic strokes, which is again slightly different. And diabetes is something, because I'm diabetic, is something that can be avoided, so that could actually be dealt with at a much earlier stage. So there's just really a lack of knowledge, I think, out there about really what these things are. But more and more people, because people are living longer, more and more people are being prone to these, Alzheimer's. And luckily enough, there's a lot of work being done on Alzheimer's cures. But not only that, I think with the dementia patients, there is a way of really talking to dementia patients, that there's a kind of language that needs to be learned, and how to deal with, how the public need to deal with if you've got a relative that's got dementia. And I've found that through trial and error, that I'm able to talk to my brother-in-law in a way and still have a conversation with him by just laying down certain pointers that he could then follow, like handholds, that they can then hold a conversation with. And it actually does work. And I think there's a real good investigation needs to be done into that. I think that one of the reasons one does a commercial or a campaign like this, I would prefer to call it a campaign rather than a commercial. And I think the reason that one does a campaign like this is to make people aware, is the fact that it can start at any age. You know, it's not necessarily, we tend to look at it as a sort of a geriatric thing, but especially with Alzheimer's, that can begin at a much earlier stage. So it's actually the aging process, as much as to do with being aged, as it were, or being older. So therefore, when they see somebody like myself, or Ian McKellen, or Hannah Brown, or any of the people who may be concerned with this campaign, there is a point of contact that they, you know, because we are not exempt, and nobody's exempt from this process. You know, we're all, even the younger people are exempt, you know. So it's a very, for the future, it's a very important thing to think about, really. So I think the scripts are really interesting because we use the voice of people, as it were, coming through me. And that I think works very well. It reminds me of that famous Godley and Cream commercial they did years and years ago, where they changed the faces of people. But I think this is to much more effect because it's about people's condition, and the conditions that people are living in, and the problems that they have, and how they deal with benefits, how they deal with the system, really, the system that will enable them to be old and keep their dignity. Because it really is about dignity. It's always about maintaining dignity at any age, no matter how old you are. And I think that's that's the key thing for the older people, you know, and especially people who have given so much to society. It's proper that they are treated in the proper way. You know? Yeah, it's been really pleasant working with Richard Loncraine. I mean, I've known of Richard, and our paths have crossed in different ways. I was actually in the original production of Richard III, which he filmed, and which was done by another director in the theatre. And then years and years ago, I think he interviewed me for a job. But we've been, you know, and we're of an age, so it's, you know, we know each other quite. I mean, we know of each other well, and it's nice. He's very relaxed, and it's a very relaxed atmosphere. The problems with age is to do with function, you know. It's certainly the things that don't happen quite in the same way they used to do, like misjudging steps, you know, and stuff like that. You know, like distances. But also you're aware of how to counteract that things. You know, it's the positive environment, you know. I think if you dwell too much on the negative of getting old, you kind of give into it in a way, and the negative breeds negative. Whereas if you actually accentuate the positive of being older, there's so much in terms of wisdom. And we're not very good in the West. I mean, the Chinese and the Indians have always had a much greater respect for age and experience. We tend to be such a youth-orientated culture, particularly in America, and actually even more now here with all these kind of ridiculous sort of reality programs that go on. And I think it's time that, you know, that was reversed, because everybody's going to get old. Everybody gets older. That's a fact. You know, when we're born, we start to get old, you know, from the day we're born. So it's something that I think should be borne in mind in just the respect for the process of getting old, and the fact it is a natural process, and it's a process that there's no shame in, and there shouldn't be any shame attached to. Someone will solve the problem with Alzheimer's, you know, and it is a disease, and it is something to do with certain proteins in the brain and kind of mulching that happens, and the fact that there's a chemical ill function. That will be dealt with. But what's important is the dignity and the peace of mind of somebody getting older. And actually, personally, I always wanted to be older. I couldn't wait to be older. When I was, when I was 4, I couldn't wait to get into long trousers. And when I got into long trousers, I couldn't wait to leave school. And when I leave school, I couldn't wait to have my first girlfriend. And when I have my first girlfriend, I couldn't wait. So that you're constantly moving forward. You're never standing still. So in a way, and when I was young as a young actor, I was always playing parts. I mean, I played parts when I started. I played parts that was like sometimes 20 years older than I was, and I had not the experience. And the great thing about age is experience, and hopefully a tiny bit of wisdom as well. Well, I don't know about how much wisdom I've got. I mean, it's a question, you know, it's a very vainglorious thing to talk about one's own wisdom. Well, what I find is, you know, I'm very wise about certain things. But I think the nice thing about being older is you do get respect, you know, and you know, I'm lucky because I have a body of work, so people look at the body of my work and go, wow, you did this and that and the next thing. And I think that's the interesting thing about being older, is that every life that you scrutinize has a fantastic pattern to it. And it's amazing, no matter where you come from or who you are, there's a sense of what you've done with your life. There's a shape to it, you know. And as you get older, you're aware of that shape. And actually it's a comfort, because you know, it almost gives you, even if you're not a believer, if you don't believe in God, or you're an atheist, or even an agnostic, you do see that there's something in the process of life that has some kind of shape to it. And aging does that to you. Aging does give you a sense of that shape, of how your life has moved in a certain direction. Every life bears that scrutiny and holds up to that scrutiny. And I think that's a very positive thing. If AgeUK can achieve one thing, it's to give them back, to maintain their dignity and respect, and to realize that there is no shame in it. In fact, the opposite. Age is something to be celebrated, not something to be kind of regarded as marginal, because it comes to everyone.